Disappointment and ponies. Video number 4. This one's about disappointment in bed. I'm Reid Mahalka from ReidAboutSex.com.
This is Kathy Bortoli from theintimacydojo.com, and we're not talking about sleeping with ponies, not that we judge anybody who does.
I'm just going to be quiet for the rest of this video.
Yes, so what we're actually talking about is disappointment around sexual issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just done some other videos where we talked about how to deal with disappointment, how to reframe it, how you might be able to get around it or use it as a signal light that something needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come to sex, it can be really challenging because our sexual expression is a lot about our acceptance. It's very vulnerable. And if you want to have sex with someone and they don't want to have sex with you, that can feel like they're saying that you're not worthy, you're shameful. We make it mean a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so dealing with disappointment around that can be even more intense for a lot of people than, say, the example we were using before, like a friend doesn't do the dishes. So what do you recommend?
There's so many ways I can go with this, and I'm just going to focus on answering the question. So there's a couple of different things that are happening all at once, like you were mentioning, right? There's the cultural things about what having sex or somebody not wanting to have sex with you means. Mm-hmm. How we take those things personally. And then, in this vein of videos, we're talking about like expectations. So, do you have an expectation that they're supposed to be a yes? And this really isn't a gendered thing as much as because men and women, this happens to all of us. And do you have, what are the cultural meanings you put onto things? Mm-hmm. And most of those meanings are given to us by culture and the environments and the magazines and the media that we are surrounded by. A lot of the reasons people say no have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And you just get mugged by a bunch of meaning making that you're doing, or, the no all of a sudden reinforces and makes real something you thought about yourself.
Yeah.
And in video 3, we're talking about things linked to childhood, usually things you think about yourself that got anchored like in 5th grade or 3rd grade.
They don't
or
like
6th
me
grade.
as much as they like someone else, or they're not going to invite me to be part of the team.
And then sometimes your disappointment's actually coming up from the fact that, wow, I haven't had sex in a long time, and it would be really nice to be expressed in that way. So, just like with Cuddle Party, and cuddling and just touch in general, like sometimes you're just starved, and skin hunger is an actual medical term. So there's this kind of disappointment that's coming up from that need.
Right.
But usually what's happening, at least first, is that you're getting clobbered with cultural meaning, and then all of a sudden this means something about you.
Yeah. So skin hunger, like you said, is a real thing. After 3 days, I believe it is, you start actually getting cranky if people don't get some kind of touch. If there's
some people, not everybody.
Yeah.
There are lots of people who are fine with it, but at physical isolation or things like solitary confinement, like in prisons and things like that, lack of touch and social interaction can wreak havoc on us psychologically.
Yeah. But sexual expression with other people isn't required. It's not a need, it's a delightful thing we have. Mm-hmm. But it's not something we actually need, though it can feel like it sometimes.
Yeah. No one ever died of blue balls, ladies and gentlemen, and you can tweet me on that.
But dealing with that disappointment, so one person had written in and said he doesn't want to have sex with me at all, and that they were feeling a lot of upset about it.
They don't want to have sex with you at all?
No.
Or who's me?
Someone was saying...
Oh, with me, the person who wrote it.
Yes,
okay, I was trying to figure out what was going on.
They weren't telling me they never wanted to have sex with me.
Good.
I never met them.
One viewer wrote in and said they'd never want to have sex with me at all.
Thank you for clarifying. But they were trying to deal with someone they'd already had a really intimate relationship, was now no longer sexual. And no matter what she did, he didn't want to have sex with her. Mm-hmm. And I want to just acknowledge you. I understand that could be so painful. It can feel horrible because you've built up this connection. You probably have some chemical things going on that your body remembers of being close to that person. Oxytocin, dopamine, like all the things that go on when we have sex. So there's a longing for those good feelings. Mm-hmm. There's probably a longing for that particular type of connection is really beautiful. And there's, again, the social stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So if you want to take the social stuff out, realize what she made it mean that he did sleep with you, or she, or whoever, what gender it is. if you felt like you were worthy and you weren't shameful and you were desirable because they slept with you, it might be something you need to work on so that you feel desirable whether someone sleeps with you or not.
Mm-hmm.
Or releasing the shame. And those are really challenging topics, but it is possible to make a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of, you may never be able to get that person to want to have sex with you again. It just may be the case. And that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to get your needs met in other ways, either with that person if they want to connect with you in different ways, or finding other people for touch and different things that will bring on oxytocin and dopamine, because humans do need that kind of
all the monkey needs that you can get met that happen without the sex having to happen.
Right. And I think it's, at least I've noticed a lot with women, I don't know, I'd love your feedback on how men are socialized. It seems like we're taught we need to get it from one person or a bad person. Like there's got to be...
Or a bad person?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I'm
intrigued.
We're supposed Prince Charming, and them being heteronormative just for this, because that's how I was socialized. Prince Charming, if I'm good enough and I sacrifice long enough and I'm like desirable enough, then Prince Charming will ride up and meet all of my needs. He'll whisk me off to the castle. I won't have to worry about money. There's all those stories.
I believe those are called fairy tales or mythology.
Yes, but we're acculturated
Sure.
to them. So there's a lot of, I need to get, Prince Charming has to have the white horse and he has to have the castle, and I need to get those needs met through that one person.
Got it.
That I've identified as a core person.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that you're...
I just was thinking about if your last name was Charming and you actually named your child Prince, like would that really fuck them up or not? That's a valid comment.
Yes.
It's probably
Also,
out there somewhere.
I'm curious if men are acculturated to think they have to... I'm really sorry, guys.
Yeah, no. Well, acculturate... Okay, so back to the big C, culture, having its way with you, and how we're acculturated. Sex is so convoluted, and there's so many mixed messages, and what your culture is that you grew up in, and what you make things mean, and then there's inside of the culture what your parents taught you to make it mean, and then things that your friends influenced you growing up. Basically, we're back to how your childhood formed your belief system, and do you have the tools to notice that?
Yeah.
2, the tools to start to change that, because we know now with brain plasticity and stuff like that, you can rewire a lot of your belief systems and over time kind of re-anchor things. So, I mean, to answer your question around acculturation from men, getting your sexual needs met from one person, it depends on your cultural background and your belief system. I mean, you're supposed to get your sexual needs met from your primary partner, and men, air quotes, are also allowed to be a lot more promiscuous than women, air quotes. But at some point, you're supposed to grow up and then source your needs from one vendor, so to speak.
Yeah. So there can be a lot of, it can feel like you didn't do a good job if you are still holding on at some level to those acculturations, and you're not getting all your needs met. If your wife or your husband, quotes,
boyfriend, girlfriend, insert person here.
Yeah, if they're not meeting your needs, it can feel like, oh, I'm not desirable enough,
or I'm not allowed to get my needs met elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so now we're back to the advice of, aside from, never try to force people to do something that they don't want to do. If your partner's actually sharing with you that they don't want to be sexual with you, that's a good thing that they're speaking about this. You can thank them for taking care of themselves, and then have a conversation about what's going on for them and what's going on in your relationship. As you're divorcing constantly, what you're making it mean because you were raised in culture.
Divorcing is not.
Divorcing, okay. Separating, right? Being present to. And then at the same time, like, what other needs around touch and emotional connection can I get met that are inside the agreements and boundaries of my relationship, so that I'm not completely deprived of getting my monkey needs met and completely starving, because that makes things worse.
Yeah, when you're pulling, when you really want something from someone, they can feel overwhelmed and pull back. So
cool.
Thank you.
What do you think about this stuff?
We'd love your feedback. We'd love to know how you're dealing with it and what issues you might be having that you'd like our suggestions on.
And thank you for your questions, and thank you, person that we were already acknowledging, for being awesome.